Welcome to Searching for the Question Live. My name is David Orban, and I am very excited to welcome our guest of today, Alex Zhavoronkov, who has been at the forefront of a very important application of artificial intelligence, that to drug discovery and applications in medicine and longevity. So, Alex, welcome to Searching for the Question Live.
David, very happy to be with you. I've been following your work for a very long time. You've been inspiring all of us for decades now. So very happy to be on this show. And I watched your show with Stephen Wolfram. He actually reached out afterwards. So that's truly amazing, and very happy to be with you. Hopefully, we'll be able to tell your audience something new and educate them on AI-powered drug discovery.
Why don't we start with talking a bit not only about what you do, but what inspired you to start? Where and how did you start on this journey? And then later we can talk about your company and your latest results. But I'm always interested also understanding the people I talk to, what their story is.
My story is very simple. Since very early childhood, I've been interested in how to live longer, because the paradigm where you put a lot of work in yourself, in your career, in the world, and then see whatever you do continuous decline and death, didn't seem fair. And currently, just like 40 years ago, we currently don't have any tools that allow us to convert, let's say, money into drugs. And unfortunately, it was the case back then. So I've been focused on longevity since very early childhood. Decided to first go after to go after resource generation for the first kind of part of my career. I did my first two degrees in computer science at Queen's University in Canada. Worked for a number of GPU companies, kind of gathering the resources and the tools to be able to go after the dream. But then when I turned 24, I decided to completely switch into longevity and did my grad work at Johns Hopkins, had a couple labs, and then started in Insilico, so never looked back. So whatever I do, just one goal, finding a way to convert money into time for everybody, not just for myself.
That is very interesting. And we may go back to that expression because it has implications in so many different ways: complexity systems, entropy, goals of how to build a worthy life, and what to do with a life once it reaches further in the future. But we may want to leave that in the second part of our conversation, when we will afford to be more philosophical. You mentioned Insilico. Insilico is your company. You raised, if I'm not mistaken, but you tell me, rather than me giving a number and then maybe giving a wrong number, how much capital you raised, and what did you do with the capital in order to accomplish or at least take steps towards accomplishing your mission?
For sure. So Insilico started in 2014, originally in Baltimore, in Maryland, and then we scaled globally. So now we're a very large company. By the way, in the case that you hear some noise in the background, I sincerely apologize. I'm doing it from the airport thanks to a delay in one of the flights. Nowadays, I'm 100% mobile. So I hope it's not too much of an inconvenience for the audience.
It's
But
fine. It's fine. Don't worry.
kind of I deviated. So Insilico started 2014. Originally, we were not kind of born into a lot of cash like many other companies, so to speak, and incubated by famous platforms like Flagship or Arch, unfortunately or fortunately, and I had to fund the company myself, and also brought some very interesting angels and early stage venture capital companies. And until 2019, we raised very little capital, just a few $1 million. So in 2019, we raised our first significant round, Series B, led by very sophisticated biotech investors, raised 37 million to launch software to the market, and also start going after our own drug discovery programs, and also establish more collaborations, grow. And after that, we never had significant troubles raising capital. So to date, we've raised officially what I can talk about is over $425 million. Currently, of course, we are working on raising more. And since then, we've managed to deliver quite a bit of results. So since 2019, we got the capital to actually go after our own drugs. And before that, we launched the software that anybody can use, so to acquire similar capability to ours. So now 10 out of the top 20 pharmaceutical companies are using our software. Thank you for actually showing our website. So yeah, so we are, if you go to Pharma AI, you'll see the software. If you go to pipeline, you see the pipeline. So on the software side, we cover biology, chemistry, medicine. We allow people to go after all things science with things like DORA that allows you to do multi-agent exploration. We also have a sustainability consortium that helps you design novel materials for carbon capture, hydrogen storage, sustainable agriculture. But most important, I guess, tools here are the Precious GPT series that allows you to understand life in time, so across multiple species, and understand diseases, understand different mechanisms of disease and multiple drugs. We have foundational models like Nudge01 for chemistry that allow you to design chemistry with desired properties, and many other tools. We utilize these tools kind of if we go back one notch and go to a pipeline. So on insilico.com, if we go to pipeline, we started developing our own drugs using the software that we provide to the market in order to originally show them as demos, right? So you basically create a demo, but how do you know that the software works? With ChatGPT, you just generate something and then look at it. And as human, you would be able to see if it's a good output or not. With drugs, you cannot do that. You actually have to do a lot of validation. First, you test your drugs in vitro, in cells, and in petri dishes. Then once they prove to work, you go and work with animals to show that the generation conditions that you put on the molecule and in the target can be confirmed in real animal experiments. And then you go into humans. Test safety, then you go test efficacy, and then safety and efficacy. And until you go the entire route, nobody would believe that your software actually works and delivers proper compounds. Unfortunately, those cycles take years, right? So you cannot accelerate many of those cycles, regardless of how good your molecule is. If you are willing to take it right away yourself, and by the way, you can't, and I would really love to have that capability, but you actually have to perform all of those experiments. And so far, we've managed to take many of those drugs that we've discovered utilizing generative AI into human clinical trials. So now 10 of them reached human clinical stage, and one of them completed phase 2A study. So it's safety and efficacy in idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. But that target and the molecule that we've taken into idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis, which is an age-related disease, we identified it using aging research. So we actually thought, okay, can we make the lung younger? And not only the lung, but the entire body. So I'm not making any claims here. It's an experimental investigational drug, by the way, for anybody from the FDA who is watching. So not trying to promote the drug, not my intention here. We're on the research side here. We managed to identify the target originally using aging research. So the idea was that if you have a disease that manifests itself very late in life, right? So you don't see 40-year-olds with IPF in abundance, right? Average age of onset is 60, 65. And our idea was to just, bring the people back to the kind of younger state. That's how the target was discovered. And then we kind of utilized many approaches to identify kind of a perfect novelty, confidence, commercial tractability profile for the target, and took it all the way to phase 2A, so which is unprecedented. And we also published several research papers explaining how we did it. So I think that, if I die tomorrow, I want this kind of target and molecule to be engraved on my grave. Hopefully, it's not going to happen, but that's a big achievement so far.
So there are so many angles to explore, of course, and we will go back to the application angle, both in terms of curing diseases as well as the long-term mission of providing the basis for healthy longevity for everyone. But let's look briefly at the AI angle instead. As we look at your website, the pharma.ai software platform talks about various components that people can use. These have been released progressively as the technology basis of AI itself matured, enabling you to develop and provide those components. So two questions around that. The first is about hardware and data centers. Do you run these yourself and host the models for others to use on your infrastructure, or do you let your users download the models and they can run them in-house?
We work with both Amazon and Microsoft, so with large hyperscalers, to provide those software packages to the entire field, either as software as a service, or they can have on-premise deployment. Most of them are already embraced the cloud infrastructure. And currently, even if you want to use, let's say, ChatGPT in a more kind of legally admissible way, right? So, you need to have an infrastructure that would be to some extent validated and accepted by the community and also by the regulators. And for example, Microsoft provides access to ChatGPT in a very controlled setting that they pretty much give you the legal stamp of approval. AWS gives you Claude. And what we do is we provide everything else, right? So for reasoning purposes, we try not to compete with large language models or large language model makers, right? They usually do not have the capabilities to go deep into biological data or chemistry data or clinical data. But those tools are extremely good at reasoning. So what we do is that we put our tools on the cloud and create the Lego toolkit for people to utilize to combine their own kind of Lego houses, Lego factories of drugs. So if you want to have just chemistry, utilize chemistry, and if you want to just a particular part of chemistry, utilize that particular type of chemistry. Because we utilize over 800 models in our platform. So imagine 800 models. Some of them have been validated 4 or 5 years ago, right, experimentally. And you know that they work extremely well. You also have the next gen, but you also want to provide the validated ones where you know they work. So what we
And
provide is basically a toolkit. Yeah.
and that is my second question, because the speed of AI evolution is such. I use my own term describing it a jolting evolution, because it exceeds our hardly gained intuitions about how exponentials work. And it was already difficult for many of us to get accustomed to gauge our expectations accordingly. And those that didn't succeed are now part of history, whether they were Kodak or Nokia or others. Incredibly successful businesses that just couldn't see the exponential improvement of technology. And now, paradoxically, or interestingly and astonishingly, the same is happening where AI experts candidly confess their surprise that certain advances happen sooner than they expected, even though they are completely familiar and aware of how exponential change happens, whether in hardware with Moore's law or in other places. And only a few, I would quote, for example, Jensen Huang of NVIDIA, or X.AI, really understand that we are now in a world where the doubling rate of technology is shortening. It is not a fixed rate of doubling anymore, the 2 years of Moore's law, more or less. And X.AI talks about, for example, a doubling rate of between 6 months and 3 months. So anything between 10 times and 100 times improvement in a single year, cumulative. And all his slides at every presentation that he makes by Jensen Huang highlight that if they were following Moore's law, they would have increased over 10 years the power of their systems less than 1,000-fold, but instead they improved them over 1,000,000-fold. So back to the question: if the rate of AI progress is super exponential, jolting, isn't it a better bet to discard older models faster and always use the latest than try to squeeze as much as it is possible out of the older ones instead?
My God, you just asked a really, really important question. So this is the question that haunts the entire industry.
Mhm.
And you're correct. So Jensen and Elon, those are probably the two kind of industrialists who not only think exponentially, but also act exponentially. Unfortunately, most other companies nowadays, including ours, are very often restricted from acting exponentially, either due to capital or due to the nature of the industry. And I will show you a very kind of cool internal slide that I've made for my team during our annual retreat. I hope I'm not going to disclose anything confidential. And if you see something there that is a little too promotional about, Insilico being number one somewhere, Again, those are internal, so they were not intended to be presented, but I'll show you that slide anyway. And to answer your question, in many areas, AI is at the exponent, and you are competing gladiatorially for speed, for cost, and also for intelligence. And you're utilizing computing, you are utilizing the data available to you, the talent available to you, the new algorithms to do that. But in biotechnology, for example, as I've explained, in order for you to validate the model, you need to test. Unless you test in animals, for example, you don't even know, that's your first kiss with a molecule, right? When you get the animal pharmacokinetic data, for example, do you know whether it's working or whether it has a specific metabolite? If the molecule is novel, there is very often no way to tell. So nobody has seen it, it doesn't follow specific principles, it has been designed intelligently, so you can trust the system, but unless you test, you don't know whether it's real or not. So when the model is validated and produced multiple examples where the molecule has been tested in animals and it worked perfectly well, then this model is validated. And then to validate it, it takes you several years. So you would still have to fall back on older technology while developing the frontier one. That is why it's very, very important to understand if you are building a sustainable biotechnology company like me, for example, we have this question every day. This is our most important question, right? Do we use a frontier model, or do we use something that we have already used for a specific task and it worked perfectly well? Sometimes you don't, if the Scotch tape works, you don't need to have the wall replaced, right? Very often for the same objective. If your job is to kind of quickly get the get a few people through a tunnel, for example, right? You just want to make sure it doesn't break. So let me show you an image that how I describe what I've just said. So I'll share a screen and I'll share a specific presentation. So first of all, I'll show you this, right? So you need to understand the timelines in our industry, and if you don't, you will fail. So first of all, this comes from a paper from Steve Paul, and those are old estimates. Now it is actually longer and more expensive because all the low-hanging fruits have been picked up. Once you've identified the mechanism of disease, so for example, you know what drives Alzheimer's, for example, you narrow down to a specific protein, it will take you 12 years and approximately $1.8 billion to test if that target worked or not, right? To get it approved. And most of the time you will fail in phase 3, where you're testing in real humans, right? So those are the probabilities of success, number of years, number of millions of dollars. Now it's more expensive. And what's even more important is that very often your target discovery and disease hypothesis is going to be wrong, right? So here at the preclinical level, you fail 99% of the time.
Am I wrong, or just recently the plague hypothesis in Alzheimer's has been questioned as well?
It is always questioned, and now it's questioned even more due to a few inappropriately published papers, including some of the top scientists who are actually now running AI-powered drug discovery companies. I don't think that the plague hypothesis is entirely wrong myself, right? So it's yet to be seen. I just think that we are trying to address plagues a little bit too late in a disease cycle. So you need to actually try to address them early. And right now, you and I could very much benefit. I'm actually a very big proponent of utilizing, Eli Lilly's anti-amyloid antibodies early if we show that there are very few side effects. Just clearing out those plagues, right? Because if you see that the drug is reasonably safe, doesn't hurt you, but removes the plagues, that's the way to validate the disease hypothesis.
In a preventive manner.
You just go to a clinic twice a year, for example, remove the plagues, and do a PET scan to confirm, and then live for the next decade, or well, wait until next year if you want to be completely free, right? So instead of letting them accumulate, and then you see if you can progress into dementia. I just don't see a reason why not. If this antibody were available right now, I would have done it, right? So just like I would inject myself with a PCSK9 drug from Inclisiran from Novartis, just to kind of lower down the cholesterol. And why not? If the safety profile is very good, and you know that you believe in the cholesterol hypothesis, for example, still, by the way, also big questions, you want to eliminate it early. So there are many hypotheses that failed, and many that will fail, but you will actually know that 12 years down the road. And that's a big problem, because amyloid hypothesis has been around, for example, in Alzheimer's for a very long time. Many drugs have been developed all the way to phase 3, and many failed. So I just wanted to show you this first, and now I will show you something else, just one different slide from an internal presentation, right? And don't judge me too harshly. I'll try to not to disclose something confidential. So this slide, and I hope you can see it from my kind of annual retreat. And you can see that, for example, in Insilico, we have two models, right? One is software, so think of it as AI, and another one is therapeutic pipeline. Think of it as validation of AI. Because without this, you cannot get to this quickly, right? Otherwise, you will be relying on the traditional approaches. So if you are going for a moderate or novel target, our time to preclinical candidate is just one step before clinical. It is 13 months. Industry average, 3 years. Time to phase 2A, approximately like less than 5 years. For the industry average, for a novel target, it can easily take 10 years, right? For GLP-1, those anti-obesity drugs that people are taking right now, it took 35 years to get into phase 2s, right? So it's actually a very long time. So the industry average to approval, 11 to 15 years. In our case, if we do extremely well, if the regulators are fine with the data, if we did extremely well 8 years ago, we might get it approved, right? And see how it works. But on the AI side, it's mad, right? So here you are basically competing gladiatorially in a really rapidly moving world. So time to prototype, 4 months. That is actually hours, right? So our timelines versus a startup. So a startup would be like 30 days, also like XAI or new like epic feature. Time to product for us, it's over a year, because I need to validate. I cannot put a drug discovery platform on the market without knowing that it works. So at least some basic level of experimental validation is necessary. And then the entire industry validates, right? Contributes to the validation database. And in this area, we are definitely by far, hands down, number one, ask ChatGPT. But in this area, in maybe AI drug discovery, we may be number one. We don't know. But definitely not in kind of all AI. So I'm actually trying to institutionalize new best practices in the company to accelerate this, to bring it closer to startup world, even on the prototyping. And for that, we use very sophisticated robotics equipment to be able to validate. We will be launching more foundational models that we can more or less trust, and then make customers choose whether they want to fall back onto something that is super validated or something that is a little bit more frontier. So they would have to make a decision. From what I've seen, when you are running a real drug discovery program, you actually would always fall back on something that is validated. So people will fall back all the time. That's why we actually sometimes have to validate ourselves. So on this disparity between the rapid advances in AI and the kind of pace, even though for us it's also mad pace compared to averages, right, to the industry standards. For us, we're like a space, we're like a Ferrari, but in the AI world, we're slower. So that is the paradigm that you have to deal with in biotechnology, and that is why and I was one of those guys, and let me just drive this point across. So when I started Insilico, I was making all kinds of weird statements saying that we're going to disrupt pharma, we're going to, go from years to months for approvals. Nowadays, I see people saying the same thing, transitioning from AI into drug discovery. But once you start driving with the speed of traffic, right, you understand the industry, and you start setting drug discovery records, even trying to outcompete yourself, you realize, my God, this is such a slow industry. And I'm very happy that I'm in that industry because, I would not want to be competing gladiatorially in large language models in the area where if your model is outperformed by DeepSeek, for example, boom, right? And you just raised and spent $500 million, and you don't have the ability to sell the model, and you don't have the ability to raise more capital. So dilemma, boom. In our case, we actually make money on drugs, right? So we sell one drug, we can get $1 billion.
The interconnected nature of the world today and the hopefully open communication that continues, especially in science, with publications that allow reproducibility, constructive criticism of processes, not only an abstract description, but data, even lab notes, everything that serves in order to support and improve what everyone is doing in the field, has the ability to expose even more clearly the differences between the regulatory environments. And you, in your own slides, or web page of the pipeline, in the first two lines, have the IPF drug being tested at the same time in, let's label it, Western environments, Western regulatory environments, and Chinese regulatory environments. And I think that is something that should happen more and more in order to accelerate the competition between these regulatory bodies, because already healthcare tourism towards China is exploding, and there should be no barrier to someone seeking to get better to be able to find a reliable scientific source, including potentially being able to make important decisions about themselves and participating in trials, or saying, I don't have a lot to lose, and I do want to test some frontier medicine. So how do you feel about the space to increase the dynamism and to improve the speed of regulatory bodies, either in the US or outside of the US?
So very good point, right? So you've noticed that we are doing two parallel studies in the US and in China, right? And that was one of the ideas that costed me a lot of money, right? So we actually, like, doing two parallel studies is more expensive than doing one global. But what we wanted to do is we wanted to check China's speed. So from whatever people think about China nowadays, actually, it's a paradox. I think I coined the term. I call it the anti-China mind virus, because whatever you say, whatever good thing you say, people are going to react negatively about this, right? So it's very difficult to have an intelligent conversation, because even if you kind of acknowledge some of the facts that may be negative, if you say anything positive, people just don't perceive it as positive. So, but then the positive thing is that the country became very open. Right now, you can go there without a visa if you have a European Union passport, 30 days visa free. US, you can go 144 hours visa free. And many other things are becoming super easy. Many things are in English, super easy translation. The level of kind of AI expertise has increased dramatically, and WeChat is now translatable into English. So many good things are happening, and we thought, well, what if we look at the regulatory environment for clinical trials? Turns out, actually, it's more regulated than the US, right? So it's more, you have to do more kind of paperwork, more agreements, etc. However, it's very positive and pleasant experience, and it's not as bad as we thought. And the ability to access 1.5 billion people, well, 1.4 something, just think about it. One country, 1.4 billion people aging, and many of them have IPF. So for us, the rate of enrollment was extremely quick. So in 1 year, we enrolled everything, or like everybody, for phase 2A, and completed the trial and got really clean data, right? So there, the data quality has also increased, right, due to the digitalization, massive digitalization of the country. So we see that it's, if you want to test quicker, you can actually go and do it there. And then while the US is still enrolling, you can maybe even optimize the protocol, reduce the dose, increase the dose, do many things, right, in order to improve the probability of success in the Western world. But piggybacking on the speed that China provides you is essential, because currently, whatever you think about, geopolitics, 60 million people die every year. Every day we have 6.8 thousand people dying. By the minute, every minute we have what, 115? I need to check the numbers, but by the time I finish talking, right? Imagine we talk for 10 minutes, it's 1.1 thousand people, right? My God. And if we don't figure out ways to save them, they're going to continue dying, and actually at a higher rate, because the population is aging and increasing at the same time. So we need to collaborate at least in one area, which is beneficial for the entire world. And testing the drug in China quickly in real good quality patients with really good quality data, it's a huge advantage. And I think that here countries need to be collaborating more. And actually, I think that the US and China could learn a lot from each other and try to deregulate some of the aspects of the clinical trials, because currently, I mean, I hope that Elon has his way. He is my kind of hero in every way. Sorry, everybody who hates him, who caught the anti-Elon mind virus. There are people like that. And I think that deregulation is going to be great. And now with the advances in AI, we might be able to test at least something faster in the diseases where people die very quickly, and we give them a chance.
We have a question from LinkedIn. Orest is asking, and what about India? That is more than 1 billion people too.
Amazing question. So we're also going into India. In India, it is a little bit more complex to actually kickstart the entire process. and the quality of the data is still, I would say, is to be explored. So my next trial, I will try to explore India, and of course, we would need to go after a disease where it would be commercially viable to later sell in India, right? Because China for China, it's a paradigm. Later, it could be commercially viable. In India, I'm not so sure.
Hmm. So we mentioned a couple of components, software, hardware, the regulatory environment, scientific approaches, methodologies, and hypotheses, and a very, very important component in the success of every project, and especially in yours, is human talent. And you have a very innovative approach here as well, where you extensively use hackathons in order to find great people, to reward them, to incentivize them, and potentially to add them to your teams. Tell us a little bit more about how did you come to that approach? How do you organize these hackathons? How do you decide that they have a positive ROI, where a lot of people would conclude, wonderful, but it takes so long that I'd rather pay a recruiter to find me someone than do a hackathon like this?
So we do that internationally or nationally, right? So we are a truly global company. And recently we did a hackathon in the UAE. We did that globally in Europe, in Canada, in the US, in China. And we're trying to get the best talent from all over the world to work in AI. And usually you're going for kind of younger individuals who are willing to experiment and also can do things very, very quickly. Um, we kind of started doing that less a little bit in many areas. Now, what you are actually looking at, it's a slightly different version of a hackathon. It's called a docuthon. So here we source the talent from all over the world to create a, a movie about our drug, right? Because so far nobody has even explained that digitally and via video how drugs are created. So if you're interested, we came up with a 15-minute version or 20-minute version of how we got to phase 2. Now we actually have another version how we got to through phase 2, and created a docuthon for documentary competition. Started winning some, even documentary movie competitions at movie festivals, which is great. By the way, David, what happened recently, just now, they announced boarding early and started. So I will have to, as you said, I could talk with you for hours, right? And I'm not as intelligent as Stephen Wolfram, but uh, before we, go to the next question, I just wanted to show one slide for everybody to see, just to understand where we are in drug discovery. And that's kind of what is most important for me now, right? So I hope you can see my slide, which shows you drug discovery and development timeline, right?
Yes.
But what is most important is this. So in last 5 years, we managed to get 20 preclinical candidates nominated. Those are the packages that for drugs that allow you to do one more step to kind of get a very regulated preclinical trial showing safety, and then you can start human clinical trials, and if you can convince the FDA, the authorities. And 10 actually got IND approval to move into human clinical stage. So if you think about this, comparing this to SpaceX, for example, this is going to orbit. So not that many AI drug discovery companies reached this kind of level. This would be probably, delivering the first payload. Phase 2 is kind of like going to the moon. phase one complete is kind of like going from the moon back to Earth, right? And so far we have not gone to Mars, which is an approval, right? So that still takes some time. So I usually compare kind of us to SpaceX, not to other drug discovery companies, because the ability to launch into orbit requires you, well, to get that ability, you need to come up with massive operational excellence that allows you to test very quickly, synthesize chemistry, identify the right model to test on several models in parallel, then publish the results, ensure that they are all transparent and reproducible, get the approval to go clinical. So it's actually very, very difficult to organize that. It requires a lot of people, a lot of AI, and our shortest time to preclinical candidates. So again, one step before clinical. So you spend another 9 months and you are in a clinic, is 9 months. So that's our record. So if your new form of AI can beat this record, you are the king, right? Right now, I'm trying to beat this record internally. So and if you are talking about longevity, you should add additional like 5-6 years to the cycle, because you would need to first get the drug approved for a disease, see how it works, and then purpose it towards several biological processes. That's our current plan.
Wonderful. So as with every one of my guests, we have a little chat before we start. And one of the inputs that I give is that anytime you want to finish, this is the secret sign to finish the conversation. And I am grateful for the time that we had together, and I don't want you to miss your flight, which has already been delayed, wherever you need to go.
I'm going to the UAE, Abu Dhabi.
All right.
Amazing place.
Very, very interesting, and really those people who are skeptical about it because they only see the surface, the luxury and the contrasts. I really invite them to go and visit and spend some time, because I am convinced that their desire to innovate and to embrace the future is genuine, and their understanding that they need to reposition their countries from being based on the 20th century oil industry in new directions is also very clear and very, very deep seated. So I'm glad that you also see it that way. I apologize to Shaheen and Anna and Dorina, who are asking great questions, and I hope that we can answer them either offline, just commenting on LinkedIn where their questions appear. And Alex, I definitely invite you back to talk about your wonderful path, because there are so many things that we can still talk about.
Thank you, David. Once we go back from the moon one more time, let's do it again. And for everybody who is watching, please share the recording, and tag me, and I'll answer your questions. 100%. So huge fan of David's work. So David, you're the best. Thanks for inviting me, and very happy to be with you and your audience.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of Searching for the Question Live. I am definitely looking forward to continuing the conversation with Alex. His work is really important. And thank you for all the questions on the stream. We will answer them in the various platforms. And we will soon have the next episode with other guests talking about how technology is a positive force in transforming society and benefiting humanity.